Welcome back to Hello Africa broadcast channel.
There are four flashpoints that should be the focus of our attention in the area of the Red Sea. First, the struggle between Egypt and its neighbors over the sources of the Nile River, particularly the sources of the Blue Nile, which runs through Ethiopia. Second, we have a consistent Iranian effort to gain entry to the Red Sea after having dominated the Persian Gulf. The third flashpoint, which we should look at, is what does it mean to have a Turkish entry into the entire area? The Turks have been busy in Somalia and in obtaining access to an island off of Sudan. And finally, the whole area is part of a great power rivalry. We are now seeing in Djibouti virtually every major naval power with a base poised to be involved in the Red Sea, including China with its first major overseas port.
Ethiopia-Red Sea Revolution. Ethio-Eritrea Connected Destiny Ethiopia-Russia Alliance of Navy. Landlocked Ethiopia is making waves in the Horn of Africa by nearing completion of a major naval facility in its capital, Addis Ababa, thanks to a bold new alliance with Russia. This extraordinary move, by a country without a coastline, signals Ethiopia's determination to reclaim its maritime legacy and reshape the regional balance of power. The construction of the new Navy headquarters, a sprawling complex designed to house advanced naval training and command operations, is the most ambitious step yet in Ethiopia's campaign to secure access to the Red Sea and protect its national interests. The roots of Ethiopia's maritime ambitions run deep. Before Eritrea's independence in 1993, Ethiopia maintained a proud naval force with direct access to the Red Sea. The loss of its coastline was a historic blow, forcing the country to rely on the port of Djibouti for 95% of its imports and exports. This dependency has left Ethiopia vulnerable to shifting regional politics and rising costs, fueling a decades-long quest to regain maritime influence. Ethiopian officials argue that, in a world where global trade and security threats move by sea, even a landlocked nation cannot afford to ignore naval power.
The first development that is causing a vast increase in tensions throughout this area is the struggle over the sources of the Nile River. For most of recent history, Egypt was the dominant actor over the Nile, and through various treaties negotiated by the British, the Egyptians also dominated the tributaries of the Nile. But now several things have happened. First, the countries along the White Nile, which goes deep into Africa up to Lake Victoria, in the past were underdeveloped, and their water needs were very limited. Now they are insisting on a greater share of water, which will affect the ultimate flow of water to the Nile River and to Egypt. But far more serious is what's going on with the other tributary of the Nile, known as the Blue Nile. It flows through Ethiopia. There, Ethiopia is planning what is called the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam. And by damming the Blue Nile, despite all the guarantees that Ethiopia can offer, Egypt is very concerned that its principal source of water for the Nile River may be denied.
They see a modern navy as essential for safeguarding trade routes, deterring piracy, and ensuring Ethiopia's voice is heard in international maritime affairs. The new chapter in Ethiopia's naval revival began in March 2025, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government signed a landmark cooperation agreement with Russia. This deal followed the collapse of a previous partnership with France, which had failed to deliver the training and resources Ethiopia needed. Russia, eager to expand its influence in Africa and the Red Sea corridor, seized the opportunity. During a high-profile visit to Ethiopia, Russian Deputy Commander-in-Chief Admiral Vladimir Vorobyev toured naval facilities and pledged Moscow's full support, from training Ethiopian officers to providing advanced military doctrine and potentially sophisticated equipment. This partnership is not happening in a vacuum. Russia's growing military presence across Africa, including recent deployments in Mali and the supply of heavy armored vehicles to other nations, has alarmed Western powers and regional rivals alike. For Ethiopia, however, Russian backing offers a path to rebuild its navy, develop homegrown expertise, and potentially gain access to friendly ports in Djibouti, Sudan, or even the contested Somaliland coast. The Ethiopia-Russia alliance has sent shockwaves through Cairo. Egypt, which considers the Red Sea its strategic backyard, has long worked to block Ethiopia's access to the coast.
Sometimes we forget, if we look back 50 years, that the spark which really ignited the Six-Day War, came also from Israel's south, when Egypt imposed a naval blockade at the Straits of Tiran, closing off Israeli shipping through the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. The Red Sea still has the potential of generating conflict in the future. It requires that we be very aware of what is going on there.
Egyptian media and diplomats have tirelessly amplified the narrative of an unbridgeable rift between Ethiopia and Eritrea, hoping to keep the two neighbors divided. Egypt's strategy is to use Eritrea as a buffer and prevent any Ethiopian naval presence that might threaten its own interests, especially the vital Suez Canal. Yet, critics point out the irony. The Red Sea is already crowded with foreign military bases, including those of the US, China, and Gulf states, none of which Egypt has openly opposed. Amid this geopolitical chess game, the destinies of Ethiopia and Eritrea remain deeply intertwined. Despite decades of political tension, the social fabric, culture, and family connections between the two peoples are inseparable.
An Ethiopian journalist reunited with his family in Eritrea for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Adisalam Hadu was among more than 400 passengers who flew to the Eritrean capital Asmara on Wednesday, on the first direct flight between the two nations in 20 years.
Now the darkness has been removed and I'm able to see my wife. The sun shines on my children and I have met my grandson. It's like winning the lottery without buying a ticket.
When Ethiopia and Eritrea went to war in 1998, they deported each other's nationals en masse. Adisalam thought his Ethiopian passport would shield his Eritrean wife from expulsion. But 2 years later, as the conflict raged on, his wife mysteriously disappeared, along with their 2 daughters. They had gone to Eritrea, most likely swept up by the patriotism and nationalism that engulfed both countries as the bloodshed escalated. There was no way for Adisalam and his wife to communicate. He never even got to ask her how or why she'd left. But a reunion was finally made possible this month when the two governments signed a peace deal that ended a generation of hostility in a matter of days.
Many Eritreans have found refuge and opportunity in Ethiopia, especially after the border war ended in the early 2000s. Ethiopia's open-door policy granted Eritrean refugees immediate status and access to education, work, and integration programs. By 2020, the Eritrean refugee population in Ethiopia had soared to over 181,000, with thousands more arriving every year to escape repression and hardship at home. Eritrea, despite its small population, is one of the world's top sources of refugees. As much as 1/3 of Eritrea's 6 million citizens now live abroad, and in 2023 alone, over 71,000 sought asylum in other countries. While Eritreans are welcomed and respected in Ethiopia, they have faced detention, discrimination, and even deportation in other nations, including the United States. The irony is stark. While global powers maintain military bases along the Red Sea and benefit from its strategic location, efforts to restrict Ethiopia's access only undermine the interests of ordinary Eritreans, who could gain from regional stability and economic growth. Many analysts argue that Egypt's efforts to stoke division between Ethiopia and Eritrea serve only short-term political ends. The real, long-term interests of both countries lie in cooperation. Their populations are socially and economically entangled, sharing benefits from trade, migration, and cultural exchange. Instead of being used as pawns by outside powers, Eritreans and Ethiopians could achieve far more by supporting each other's progress and resisting external manipulation. Ethiopia's push to rebuild its navy is about more than military hardware. It's a statement of intent, to adapt to a changing world, to assert its sovereignty, and to ensure that its people, and its neighbors, have a stake in the future of the Red Sea. As Russian trainers arrive and the new Navy headquarters prepares to open, the region is watching closely. Will this be the dawn of a new era of cooperation and shared destiny between Ethiopia and Eritrea? Or will old rivalries and foreign interference keep the Horn of Africa divided? One thing is clear, Ethiopia's Red Sea revolution is just beginning, and its outcome will shape the fate of millions for years to come.
There are 4 flashpoints that should be the focus of our attention in the area of the Red Sea. First, the struggle between Egypt and its neighbors over the sources of the Nile River, particularly the sources of the Blue Nile, which runs through Ethiopia. Second, we have a consistent Iranian effort to gain entry to the Red Sea after having dominated the Persian Gulf. The third flashpoint which we should look at is what does it mean to have a Turkish entry into the entire area? The Turks have been busy in Somalia and in obtaining access to an island off of Sudan. And finally, the whole area is part of a great power rivalry. We are now seeing in Djibouti virtually every major naval power with a base poised to be involved in the Red Sea, including China with its first major overseas port.
Dear viewers, if you like this video, please subscribe to our Hello Africa YouTube channel to get more known and unknown facts about Africa. Thank you.